The Indian Air Force was established on 8 October in 1932 in colonial India as an auxiliary of the Royal Air Force. However, a handful of Indian pilots had flown with the Royal Air Force, that is, Royal Flying Corps, 15 years earlier, Harjit Singh Malik being the first Indian pilot in the RFC, who ultimately scored 6 victories against Germans. Other notable pilots were A.C. Wellingkar, Errol Sen, and Indralal Roy, India's only ace who scored 10 aerial victories against the German and posthumously awarded DFC, that is, Distinguished Flying Cross. Upon its establishment, the Indian Air Force adopted Royal Air Force uniforms, badges, brevets, and insignia, and on 1st April 1933 commissioned the first squadron with 4 Westland WAPT-2 biplanes and 5 Indian pilots. The first Indian pilots were Harish Chandra Sarkar, Subrata Mukherjee, Bhupendra Singh, Azad Baksh Awan, and Amarjit Singh. The sixth one, J.N. Tandon, had to revert to logistic duties as he was too short. Then the Infant Air Force saw its first combat experience in 1937 in North Waziristan. However, till 1938, when A, B, and C flight was raised, which brought the number 1 squadron to its full strength and remained the sole Indian Air Force formation when World War II began, by which time the personnel strength had increased to 16 officers and 662 men. During World War II, the Air Force saw rapid expansion. Ultimately, at the end of the war 1945, the Indian Air Force had 9 squadrons, all of which had taken part in the war against Japan. On independence and partition of the country, Royal Indian Air Force was reduced to 6 squadrons of Tempest 2 fighters, plus some Spitfire 14s and a handful of C-47 Dakota transports. The Royal Indian Air Force entered the jet era on 4th November 1948 when 3 Vampire jet fighters arrived in India. So, India became the first nation in Asia to operate fighter jets. The transformation of the Royal Indian Air Force in the jet era was consolidated under AVM Subrata Mukherjee, who on 1st April 1954 became an Air Marshal and the first Indian Chief of the Air Staff. In 1950, when India became a republic, the Air Force dropped the royal prefix. Indian Air Force underwent massive transformation and expansion, inducting large numbers of Vampires, Oragans, Mistresses, Canberras, Hunters, and Jeannettes fighters. The only heavy bomber type the Indian Air Force operated at that time was refurbished B-24J. The war of 1965 changed everything. Soon after this, the Soviet origin MiG-21 became the mainstay of the fighter force, while another Soviet origin platform, the Sukhoi 7, was inducted for the ground attack role. During the 1971 war, India's first indigenously developed fighter bomber, the HF-24 Maruti, took part. However, to the dismay of many, this elegant fighter remained underpowered and consequently had a short service life. But the fact can never be denied that India became the first nation in Asia not only to have indigenously developed a fighter jet but also successfully deployed it in a war. The most rapid transformation of the Indian Air Force took place in 1980s. According to the data available in open source, during this period the Indian Air Force procured 140 Jaguars, 50 Miras 2000, 70 MiG-29, 10 MiG-25, 160 MiG-23 and 165 MiG-27. It was 90s when the Sukhoi 30 first entered into services with the Indian Air Force, while the MiG-21s were being upgraded to become the MiG-21 Bison. Over the last 3 decades, the Indian Air Force has looked for a suitable replacement for the MiG-21, even as the entire fleet of MiG-23, MiG-25 and MiG-27s were phased out. Though in 2008, the Indian Air Force instituted a requirement for some 126 medium multi-role combat aircraft, but ultimately the end went with just 36 Rafale. In addition to these 36 Rafales, Indian Air Force still has a requirement of 114 advanced multi-role combat aircraft. Earlier dissatisfaction with the Russian 5th generation fighter program made India withdraw. However, the procurement and subsequent manufacture of a total 272 Sukhoi 30 MKIs has helped to stem the depleting force levels. The Indian Air Force present fighter fleet consists of a dwindling number of MiG-21 Bisons, which are scheduled to be retired by 2025. 50 Miras 2000s are being upgraded, while MiG-29s are being upgraded to MiG-29 UPG level. Jaguars are being upgraded to Daring 3 standard, while Sukhoi 30 MKIs are slated to be upgraded to Sukhoi 30 UPG or Super Sukhoi level. If we talk about the LCA program, 40 LCA Mark 1 as well as 83 LCA Mark 1A will see services with the Indian Air Force, while work on Mark 2 is going on. At the same time, work on AMC is going on as well. According to reports available, the project will see two phases. While the first phase will see induction of 5th generation platform, the next phase will see induction of 6th generation technology incorporated to the 5th generation platform, thus making it an advanced 5th generation or 5.5 generation platform, thus enhancing the capability. By 2035, the Pakistan Air Force would have retired all its Mirage 3s, Mirage 5s, F-7s and earlier model of F-16s, which will have been replaced by the JF-17 Thunder. And according to the latest reports, even they are procuring some number of J-10C. However, there are no official confirmation from Pakistan at this moment. By the end of 2020s, there would be some 200 JF-17s in services plus some 40 remaining F-16s and might be some additional J-10Cs as well. Besides the I and 5th generation platform as well, which possibly will be helped by the China or might be Turkey to enhance their capability. On the other hand, China is already the third largest air force in the world and expanding rapidly. They have already inducted 5th generation combat platform J-20s, which is expected to be inducted in large numbers. At the same time, they are working on a second 5th generation platform as well as stealth bombers. At the end, the induction of new fighters for the Indian Air Force is imperative. The fourth largest air force in the world must not only maintain air dominance but need to prepare for multi-domain, multi-theater combat. The people of India deserve a technologically advanced air force by 2035. So, as on to continue to touch the sky with glory.